Who are we looking at? We're looking at SGA because of his availability and consistency. It's Jaylen Brown to do his usage and his leadership. It's Jaylen Brown for how they're playing. It's Cade Cunningham because Detroit's in the top of the East. The MVP talk is going to be wild, and it'll be interesting to watch. MVPs just don't dominate. They survive the season.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Good afternoon. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Great to be back with you. It's our Wednesday edition of the show. Lots to cover in the National Football League. Some very big news percolating, of course, in the coaching cycle. We'll also get into the latest media. Simon Applebaum will join us for the podcast tomorrow. Will be televised. Dexter Henry is kind enough to weigh in on the National Basketball Association. We've got Sam McQuillan in the house with the latest on prediction markets, and the great Michael DeCourcy talks some college basketball with us here on the show as well. Let's get started with the story of the day, which is the National Football League. And ironically, maybe not a coaching story here. A Missouri senator has introduced legislation to block the Chiefs from operating a sports book in the state after the team confirmed plans to move into a new stadium across the border in Kansas. Now, remember, in the state of Missouri, sports betting is legal as of December of last year. But a senator filed on the end of the year, December 31st, proposing a constitutional amendment to remove the Chiefs from the list of professional sports teams that are legally recognized for the purposes of sports betting. Obviously, this is some clapback from them saying that they want to leave Kansas City and head to Kansas. Meanwhile, yesterday in the NFL, we got a big surprise. This is the biggest one in the coaching cycle, without a doubt. We've got John Harbaugh fired as head coach of the Ravens. How about that? Ted Marchibroda, Brian Billick, remember him? John Harbaugh, one of the best coaches in arguably the last 20 years in the NFL, is going to be looking for a new destination. He will not have to wait very long. His agent said that 7 different teams have contacted him. There are 6 openings, so that's probably one team that already has a coach. In 18 seasons, he won 180 games, 13-11 postseason record, and even won a Super Bowl. John Harbaugh out as the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. No one seems to be interested in talking about the Ravens' next head coach, just talking about where Harbaugh may end up. Meanwhile, in college football, Ohio State's wide receiver Cardell Tate has declared for the NFL draft. He had 1,800 yards receiving and 14 touchdowns over 3 years. He expected to be a first-day pick in the upcoming draft. Tate, great player at Ohio State. Trinidad Chambliss, still waiting to find out if he's going to get another year of eligibility. He has yet to receive a definitive answer. He's getting ready for Thursday night's game against the University of Miami. The Detroit Lions have fired offensive coordinator John Morton. He replaced Ben Johnson, who went on to the Chicago Bears. Morton had his play calling removed from head coach Dan Campbell, and also Cam Taylor Britt has been sentenced for a driving incident. He was sentenced to 5 days of jail time Ohio judge ruled on Tuesday. A lot of the action in sports last night happened in the NBA. LeBron James, in case you missed it, had a windmill dunk. First time I've seen that from him in a while. They beat the Pelicans 111-103. They were 5.5-point favorites. LeBron James in the game had 30 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists. They outscored the Pelicans 32-17 in the fourth quarter. Ironically, we haven't done a lot of LeBron talk on the show recently, but here he is after the win last night.
But it sounds like I know I'm gonna be here again. So, I just think it's at this point, in my career where I'm 41 years old. So, just appreciating the ability to go out there and make winning plays, help my team win, compete for whatever we're competing for that night. If it's a loose ball here, if it's a possession here, or whatever. So even more of a level of appreciation. That's all.
Every night he doesn't have his best stuff, but he has enough to win. And you just got to, I'm his catcher. I've figured out, how to call the pitches. Sometimes he tells me to F off, and he calls his own pitch, which is fine too. But it really is, to me, it's that. It's like, what's the best way to kind of utilize him tonight based on the opponent, based on the coverage, based on how he's moving. We have conversations sometimes in games. How's your 3-ball feel? Okay. All right. I'm going to run the softball play for you, or I'm going to, put you in this spot versus the pick and roll, because I know that you'll end up with the shot. And it's really just that ongoing dialogue with him. To me, what he's doing at 41, what he did last year at 40, it's greatness. It's just a different form of greatness.
Minnesota Timberwolves take care of the Miami Heat last night in big fashion, 122-94. Anthony Edwards last night had 26 points and hit 5 3-pointers. Minnesota playing good basketball. They've won 3 games in a row, and Chris Finch certainly happy with the outcome, not just a win, but they blew out the Heat.
When you play this team with the way they play, containing the ball is the most important thing. I thought we were really good. Upped our physicality, kind of stood them up when they were coming downhill, and tried to win that battle as many times as we could, and our guys were great. As the game went on, they got more and more physical too, which I liked. So.
Yeah, with even more of an avalanche, and then we showed less of a spirit in this one. The one on Saturday, we had a spirit to fight, all the way to the end. That's what is most disappointing to me as the head coach. The last 6 minutes, it just felt like we let it go. At that point, we weren't going to win the game. When they knocked down those threes, once Randall hit that one, we were 16 for 48 or something like that in the paint at some point. And then DiVincenzo hit 2 more threes. But still, what you have is your spirit, and you just keep on fighting, not just to let it go there at the end.
Memphis Grizzlies hold on to beat the Spurs 106-105. Cam Spencer of the Grizzlies took the lead with 37 seconds left, and that ended up being the final. Victor Wembanyama had 30 points in just 21 minutes. He's been on limited minutes since coming back from injury. Here's Mitch Johnson on the loss that he had last night to the Grizzlies.
We were probably in control for most of the game, and that was misleading because our process of what we were trying to execute was not sharp. And I thought that our body language and reactions and focus on the game plan execution and what needed to be done was not sharp. And that's frustrating, and that's on myself, and something that we're going to have to continue to be better at, or we're going to continue to find ourselves in situations like this.
This team has 0 quit in it. They are fighting. They represent everything that's good. Everybody who's dressing is giving everything they have. They're fighting for each other. They never lose trust in it. They show emotion because they actually care, and they fight. And I'm incredibly, incredibly happy that they finally got some type of payoff for that. Those are the feelings that I am feeling.
Indiana Pacers' tough season continues. They lost their 13th straight game. Doesn't sound real, but it is. 120-116 to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavs were 6.5-point favorites. Darius Garland had 29 points. In college basketball, and we'll dive more into this with Michael DeCourcy coming up in just a few minutes, number 6, Duke goes on the road to beat number 20 Louisville by a final of 84-73. Cam Boozer, Player of the Year candidate, had 27 points, 8 rebounds. Duke 14-1 with 6 wins versus top 25 teams. That has John Shire in a good mood after last night's win.
I think the first thing in order, I've been fortunate to see a lot of special players here. The special guys, man, they live it. He lives it. You know, over Christmas break, he wasn't relaxing. He was working out, training every day. You know, he's watching film. He's consumed by it. And so I think that makes him incredibly prepared, and that makes him incredibly confident, you know, in these situations. And then I think for him, he just understands what the game requires. Some games it's more, he had 9 assists last game for us. You know, this game, you know, again, he has 27, 8, and 4. And, again, the defense was terrific. So I think it's those two things that really allow him to make such an impact. Just his love for the game, his preparation, and then his ability to feel what's required.
More college basketball, by the way, coming up with Michael DeCourcy of Sporting News. Also, one note from college football as well. Ty Simpson is leaving the University of Alabama. In fact, he is headed toward the NFL draft. There are different projections and predictions as to where Simpson could end up. Some have him as a first-day pick. Some think that maybe he should stay at Alabama. We'll let somebody else make that determination. I know what we'll weigh in on. That's college basketball. Michael DeCourcy will join us from Sporting News right after the break to go over the Gators' big win over Georgia yesterday, among other things. Don't go away.
OK Dubs has to go back to his roots. I'm not a Jets fan, I'm not a Giants fan, and neither one of those teams even play in New York. But I'm a New Yorker through and through, despite where my mail gets sent. And I will not stand for the Jets to be dragged through the mud in this way. Not going to happen. So Dante Moore, if you do leave, you should be so lucky to fly the plane.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Who are we looking at? We're looking at SGA because of his availability and consistency. It's Jalen Brunson doing his usage and his leadership. It's Jaylen Brown for how they're playing. It's Cade Cunningham because Detroit's in the top of the East. The MVP talk is going to be wild, and it'll be interesting to watch. MVPs just don't dominate. They survive the season.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Great to catch up with Michael DeCourcy and talking some college hoops with us here on the show. Mike, great to have you back. And now that the college football season's come to an end and the NFL season as well, you and I can dive into some hardcore college hoops. And I know that makes you happy here. We got March Madness just a couple of months away. Although I would say, Mike, and I know you're following this, in my opinion, doesn't the college football playoff feel a lot like the NCAA tournament? It's like expect the unexpected with these games, right?
Yeah, I think to an extent. I think we're still not to the level of evolution where you can expect James Madison to go out to Oregon and win. But maybe that has something to do with college football and I believe this is the right approach, putting their early round games on campus and not on neutral fields where things might be evened out at least a little. But in terms of once you get into the heart of it, as we got into it with the quarterfinals, we saw what would be considered upsets. We saw Ole Miss take out Georgia, unexpected. Miami take out Ohio State. I know that the teams that have had byes have not done well, but I think it's more complicated than that. Last year, a lot of the bye records were because they were seeding teams from lesser conferences. This time they seeded it straight. They still had the same issue. But again, I don't think the teams that were seeded were super accomplished. They might have been very successful. Ohio State, for example, not a super accomplished team, beat Michigan, beat Texas, not a whole lot else. So I think that had something to do with it. It's getting more balanced. And that's the whole idea behind expanding the playoff, is to make it a sport that doesn't just belong to Alabama, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and Clemson and Georgia. It belongs to everyone now.
Mission accomplished, I would say, in that realm, without a doubt. All right, but college basketball has belonged to the Michigan Wolverines this season, Mike. I mean, another win, this one over Penn State, 74-72. They're 14-0 on the season, and huge favorites now to win the Big Ten championship. Now, I know a lot of folks did like Michigan going into the season. They did. But this is an unprecedented start for a program that's certainly rising right now.
Yeah, in terms of the volume of their victories, their efficiency margin at KenPom.com, and KenPom is kind of the gold standard of basketball statistics, college basketball statistics. Their efficiency margin is unbelievable. It's 5 points greater than any other team in college basketball, and that's a massive advantage. They have been phenomenal in that sense. But what we saw them last night struggle down the stretch against Penn State, a really well-coached team that isn't super talented, or it's talented in certain places and very young. But Penn State came back, made it a game, and we saw from Michigan things that one of the reasons why I wasn't ready to hand the trophy to Michigan. I still think they have a great chance to win it, but I'm willing to see the season play out. One is past history. Kentucky 10 years ago, 11 years ago, was sent 8 or 9 pros onto the floor at one time and still wound up not winning it. So it's possible from that sense. But also their execution, point guard play late. LJ Kaysen came in and bailed them out a little bit. Elliot Cadeau was not elite against Penn State. And so he's got to prove that he is a championship point guard, even though they were able to win a bunch of games against terrific opposition by massive margins. What happens when it gets tight? Because it's going to get tight. The top of this sport is phenomenal. My first 3 seed lines on the brackets I do for FoxSports.com they're so rich. The 12 teams that are in that grouping all have the ability to win the national championship.
Yeah, Mike, you see that graphic right there that we just showed? Do you find it interesting that the Wolverines are minus money to get to the Final Four? It seems a little premature on that one to me. You don't see that often. I understand 4-1 to win the championship, minus 130 the Final Four. I mean, we're not even in February yet.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And again, they're an impressive team. I mean, their front court is phenomenal, and they've got great depth on the wings. But that's a lot. Like I said, I just listed. I mean, I didn't list the names, but 12 teams that are on my first 3 seed lines. You saw Houston last night. They were tremendous. BYU, if you haven't seen them, you haven't seen AJ Demancia yet. He's phenomenal. There are so many good teams in that first 12. Iowa State went into Purdue and won by 30. Purdue's beaten a bunch of teams. Even beyond that grouping, Alabama and a few others are threats. So, those odds are a little rich, but I do love this Wolverines team.
Duke takes care of Louisville yesterday, 84-73. Another monster game for Cam Boozer. 27 points. He is one of the favorites to win the Wooden Award. Still been about plus 150, 140 right now, plus 165. So Duke picks up another win. They went, certainly leaned on Boozer again. They've been doing this most of the season. And as time goes by, I think this number will come down. Certainly at this point, you have to figure that Duke will probably win the ACC. Mike, they're minus 280 to win the conference.
Yeah, I think that Duke's issue, and they're high-class problems, but they have to show that they can build an offense that goes beyond giving the ball to Cam Boozer and letting him do his thing. They had 9 assists on 29 field goals against Louisville. They were a little bit lucky in the sense that Louisville didn't have Michael Brown, their tremendous freshman point guard. He's still bothered by a back injury. And so they had that going for them. But on their end, they have to find a way to make their offense function. Caden Boozer, Cam's twin brother, was not effective last night. And they were trying to work him in as a starting point guard and move Caleb Foster more to the 2 so that he can be the terrific player he is. He was great last night, scored 20 points. But offensively, in terms of moving the basketball, sharing it, and making sure that everybody gets great possessions, if you don't have a great point guard, eventually it's going to get you. And right now, Duke's not in that position.
Iowa State Baylor is probably the primary game on the slate tonight. Number 3 team in the country. One of the biggest tests they'll have all season. They're 4.5-point favorites on the road, total 155. How do you feel about their chances tonight?
Oh, I like their chances. They're going to have a difficult game because Baylor at home is a challenge, and most anybody on the road in the Big 12, it's a terrific conference, is going to give you a challenge. But I think that the interesting element of this is James Najee gets a big test. This will be a second game. He's the player who caused so much controversy being signed to play at Baylor, even though he'd already been drafted by an NBA team. A lot of college coaches were not happy with that. But James was signed because Scott Drew needed front court depth. He only had 7 healthy players and almost no big guys. So now he's got Najee. We'll see how it goes.
Mike, good luck with your Steelers Monday night. We'll talk next week.
OK Dubs has to go back to his roots. I'm not a Jets fan, I'm not a Giants fan, and neither one of those teams even play in New York. But I'm a New Yorker through and through, despite where my mail gets sent. And I will not stand for the Jets to be dragged through the mud in this way. Not gonna happen. So Dante Moore, if you do leave, you should be so lucky to fly the plane.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Who are we looking at? We're looking at SGA because of his availability and consistency. It's Jalen Brunson doing his usage and his leadership. It's Jaylen Brown for how they're playing. It's Cade Cunningham because Detroit's in the top of the East. The MVP talk is going to be wild, and it'll be interesting to watch. MVPs just don't dominate. They survive the season.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Big NFL games coming up this weekend, including the Jacksonville Jaguars and Buffalo Bills. What a showdown they will have. We'll preview that game. We'll also get into the New England Patriots, who have a big opportunity coming up this weekend. And yeah, Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers back in the playoffs. Again, it's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. Well, the Jacksonville Jaguars are a home underdog to Bills Mafia and the Buffalo Bills. Yes, that's right. the Buffalo Bills fans will be traveling to Florida and getting out of Buffalo to watch that game this weekend in Jacksonville. But the opportunity is there. The Jaguars are the division champions with a chance now to move on to the next round. Here's Liam Cohen on the opportunity to take out Josh Allen and arguably over the last few years, one of the best teams in the AFC.
I think it's this group specifically, as so many times we've talked after Houston, is really dug in and really treated every week like a playoff game. Trevor, I think, said it best yesterday. It was like we were in must-wins to win the division, and to be in the situation that we're in, we kind of treated them all that way, and it was 1-0 each week. And, I think the no flinch, no blink mentality of playing 4-quarter football games and for 60 minutes or longer is the mentality. And so I think these guys, we have enough veterans and enough players on this team that have been through difficult games, difficult years, good winning years, teams. And ultimately, when you have leadership like that and you have continuity, and they can then give that information and some of that knowledge to the younger players that haven't been through it, I think that's why you probably see some of the ability to be mentally and physically tough.
Meanwhile, the New England Patriots are favored over the Los Angeles Chargers. That game is Sunday Night Football. This game feels like the old days when San Diego would play New England, Tom Brady era, etc. Phillip Rivers on the other side of the football. All right, here's Mike Vrabel dialing it back. Of course, he remembers all those matchups too. Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Will the Patriots prevail? Here's Vrabel with a preview.
I do now. I feel like we are now. I would just tell you that they play great defense. They're very sound. They're good tacklers. They're physical. They get off the field on third down. They're good in the red zone. They run the football. It's a physical football team. They possess the football. They lead the NFL in time of possession. They have good, very good quarterback play. They're well coached. They play with technique and fundamentals. The game, they don't panic, one way or the other. They kind of stick to their game plan and wear you down and execute in critical situations. So a lot of respect for them, certainly what they've done in a short amount of time.
And your team also being built?
I think that we're trending in the right direction, that we have our moments of all of those. And I can point to numerous instances of us doing it. So again, that's the only thing that's important is what we're able to do on Sunday night.
Meanwhile, Monday Night Football should be a fun one. Can the Pittsburgh Steelers keep things rolling after a miracle win last Sunday night? They play against the Houston Texans, a team that knows all too well about playing good defense. That's probably what the matchups will be. And they're underdogs. And Mike Tomlin is an underdog, usually pretty good. Tomlin usually good with words before a playoff game. Here's some of them as we head into the weekend.
They make the necessary plays in weighty moments, really in all three phases. I think about a 3rd and 14, I think, versus Jacksonville, where Davis Mills scrambles into the corner of the end zone to give them a late win at home versus those guys, for example. But you don't get in this tournament unless you had your moments. You certainly don't win 9 straight unless you have continuity in complementary play. They're good in all three phases. I think about DeMeco Ryans when I watched their tape and how he played the game, and a tip of the cap to him. I think the Houston Texans play collectively the way that he did. They're tough and smart. They play to win. They play with emotion, as I mentioned. And so, man, really excited. Don't take home playoff games for granted. Certainly don't take home Monday night playoff games for granted, man. It's an honor to be in this position, excited about it. But I and we show respect to that by training with an edge and preparing with great urgency. And I'm looking forward to a full week of doing so with our collective.
And, of course, college football begins Thursday night with Miami and Ole Miss. We'll preview that game tomorrow with Manny Navarro from The Athletic. Coming up next, Sam McQuillan joins us from Legal Sports Report right after this.
looking at? We're looking at SGA because of its availability and consistency. It's Jalen Brunson doing his usage and his leadership. It's Jaylen Brown for how they're playing. It's Cade Cunningham because Detroit's in the top of the East. The MVP talk is going to be wild, and it'll be interesting to watch. MVPs just don't dominate. They survive the season.
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Sam McQuillan is with us from Legal Sports Report. Sam, what would be another visit with you without discussing prediction markets? Let's get started and discuss the latest on Kalshi. You wrote about this over at LegalSportsReport.com. Kalshi's done a good job of getting a lot of new people to download their app, deposit some money, and make some predictions. But what is the focus beyond that?
Yeah, it's a great way to look at this. There's been a ton of growth. It's similar, we're seeing to prediction markets, what we saw to sports books when they first came in and kind of took the country by storm, acquiring all these new users with incentives and bonuses. And now you have Kalshi kind of moving into that realm of things where now they are trying to retain all the great customers that have signed up and used the product and make sure they're really here to stay as opposed to kind of just being a fad. Which is really important when you talk about prediction markets, which are fundamentally different than sports books. Kalshi announcing this week that it's going to have a VIP program, which is going to be essentially for its top users that it wants to retain, where it's going to be very similar to what sports books have, where you have kind of a direct line of customer support day and night to make sure that everything is going smooth for the biggest customers they want to retain. For sports books, these are their biggest programs. These are where they kind of make all their money, is keeping these big kind of whales as they're known. So Kalshi, interesting following with kind of a similar move here. And it's really important from the standpoint too, the prediction markets right now need a lot of liquidity. It's great to be able to offer all these markets on things that sports books can't, be in states where sports books have not been able to get to right now. But if no one is on the other side of these markets, a lot of the time, you're not going to attract and keep the big bettors that you kind of want to take away from sports books. So you can kind of look at this as a move of improving the liquidity that Kalshi has on its platform, as well as kind of preparing for incoming competition. We know FanDuel and DraftKings have launched their own prediction markets as well. So they'll be competing in states where Kalshi so far has really only had to compete with Coinbase and a few other small prediction markets, Polymarket not fully back launched yet. So it's kind of a new pivot for the main prediction market here going into 2026. Last year was obviously all about launching, getting off the ground, having tons of volume. as you mentioned, Craig, a lot of app downloads as well. Now it's the how do we make this long term? How do we last? How do we keep these customers? Not just from a standpoint of is regulation coming? Are we going to be legal? But what happens when the rest of the industry catches up to us as well? So I would imagine there'd be similar kind of moves Kalshi and others make throughout the year, signaling that now they're kind of going to try to focus on customer retention as opposed to going out and grabbing market share.
All right, let's now, speaking of the main reason, no pun intended, let's get to Maine and talk about what's headed for them here in 2026. Some casino gambling potentially on deck. What's the latest there?
Yeah, it's been a really slow story for states trying to legalize iGaming, online casino. We only have about 5 that have done it so far, which obviously is much less than sports betting, which is about 40, and then 50 when you count prediction markets. But Maine this week could become the 6th or 7th state, I believe. Don't have the fresh numbers in front of me, that would have legal online casino games, otherwise what's known as iGaming, which is kind of this real end game for the sports betting companies. They want everyone to become a sports bettor and then eventually go over to online casino where it's much more profitable. But the Maine legislature actually passed a bill back in June of last year that would legalize iGaming in the state, but the governor has not signed it. The legislature adjourned right after they passed it. She declined to sign it. And because in Maine, the governor can't act until the legislature is back, this week, now that the legislature is back, the governor has about 3 days to either veto it, sign the bill, or let it become law without her signature, which are some pretty interesting outcomes when you look at who has opposed online casino in Maine. The governor has in the past been vocal about not being in favor of adding more gambling to the state, but hasn't really taken a hard stance and obviously hasn't vetoed it yet. You have the Maine Gaming Control Board, another regulator, arguing that the structure of who would have to govern online casino under the bill would diverge from the current structure where casinos fall under the gambling board as opposed to the gambling unit. And then you have the state's 2 commercial casinos, Hollywood Casino and Oxford Casino, which would not be allowed to be a part of this industry under the bill. That's kind of the big pressure point here. iGaming would only go to control of the state's 4 tribes with casinos who are partnered with DraftKings and Caesars, as they are in sports betting as well. So a lot of opposition there from that standpoint. If the governor does end up vetoing it, then you would need a 2/3 majority from the legislature to override her veto and really make legalizing iGaming possible. But based off of prior votes, it doesn't look like that majority is there. So if the governor vetoes it, it could be curtains for this bill. But again, she hasn't taken any action yet, so she could also just let it become law without her signature. We'll know in a few more days, but should be a pretty interesting situation up in Bangor.
Sam, Penn Entertainment in 2025 made a lot of headlines. I'm not sure they were for all the right reasons. They're definitely sticking around in the gaming space. But what direction will they head after a couple of failed attempts to really take over the markets?
Yeah, Penn, the company behind ESPN Bet, which we know has come and failed, behind Barstool Sportsbook, which had a very similar story, now trying to kind of salvage its sports betting and iGaming operations with the Score Bet. It's entering 2026 with a new plan for online gaming, which is going to revolve around the Score. They just appointed Chief Technology Officer Aaron LaBerge, who actually came over from ESPN and Disney to help facilitate that partnership and transition, and has stayed on with Penn even after the ESPN partnership. They've appointed him to oversee the digital and technology segment behind its iGaming app and its sports betting app as well, where it'll be hoping to capture some more market share and quite frankly just save more money and stop spending on frivolous partnerships that haven't worked out and really invest in the product. So LaBerge has a lot of experience rolling out the ESPN app, which was very ballyhooed and watched when that was coming out and being developed. Now he's going to be focusing primarily on Penn's gaming apps. So we'll see what happens as far as progress this year. But it's definitely going to be kind of a new road that Penn is trying to take as it tries to attempt to salvage and make inroads from sports betting and hopefully turn a profit in 2026.
We definitely knew at this time last year, Sam, that Missouri was headed toward legalizing sports betting, and that happened in Q4 at the end of last year. Saw some reports about Mississippi and Wisconsin maybe going online. I guess I'm sort of asking at this point, more about Wisconsin than Mississippi because, Sam, quite frankly, I've been hearing about Mississippi going online for like 6 years and then nothing ever happens. They do have the retail shops there. Is this something that we should be paying attention to this year?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with Mississippi. First of all, Craig, it's kind of been the same story. The tribal casinos or the commercial casinos, the retail casinos, floating the idea and then kind of backing off. But with Wisconsin, the problem has rested largely on getting the tribes who have a lot of power there to agree to a framework that the commercial operators would want as well. I wouldn't hold my breath on Wisconsin. It's kind of start of the year. You hear some bubblings. You never really know where it's going to end up. If we could see some real momentum in Wisconsin, if we see it in any state this year. But again, it's another complicated tribal situation, and we'd have to kind of see how everything plays out throughout the legislature, the priorities of the year as well. And then obviously you have a lot of other issues that are big on Wisconsin's docket right now as well. I don't know if legalizing sports betting is going to be one of them, but it certainly could pop up, and we'll keep watching it the rest of the year as these legislatures really unfold and lawmakers get back to work.
Sam, great stuff as always. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll check back later in the week. Appreciate you coming on NewsWire today.
Sounds good. Thanks, Craig.
Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report here with us. Coming up next, guess who's in the house? We've got Simon Applebaum from the podcast Tomorrow Will Be Televised. This battle with Netflix and Paramount, Skydance for Warner Brothers has been going back and forth, a hostile takeover involved. You don't hear that very often in media, and we'll get all caught up with Simon next. He's in studio. Don't go away.
Who are we looking at? We're looking at SGA because of its availability and consistency. It's Jalen Brown to do his usage and his leadership. It's Jaylen Brown for how they're playing. It's Kate Cunningham because Detroit's in the top of the East. The MVP talk is going to be wild, and it'll be interesting to watch. MVPs just don't dominate. They survive the season.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Luke, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Let's check in with Simon Applebaum of the podcast Tomorrow Will Be Televised for everything happening in media and sports. And Simon, it looks like we finally can put this story to a close here. I mean, Netflix and Paramount and their battle for this Warner Brothers, my gosh, like what was going on here over the past week? I thought they had a deal, then they didn't have a deal. Can we finally say that this is now finally put to bed and Netflix is the winner of all of this? Where do we stand?
Maybe, just maybe, Green. By the way, Happy New Year +7 to you and all the SportsGrid crew and to all of our viewers as well. The Warner Bros. Discovery Board this morning said, nope, we are not going to take the revised Paramount Skydance offer of $100 billion or $30 a share. While they did like the fact that Larry Ellison, the father of David Ellison, the head of Paramount Skydance, came in with a guarantee that, yes, I will finance this deal in part. They still had a lot of things to work out. So here's where we stand. Paramount at this moment has not responded to the Warner Brothers board of directors decision. Netflix has basically saying, we think we now have a clear shot to make this merger work within the next 12 to 18 months. The question now is, will Paramount finally throw in the towel, or will they make a bid that raises the price? And I think a lot is going to be depending, in this case, with if you're TNT or TBS, you are watching this decision right now with Paramount, because if Paramount Skydance does, in fact, keep the deal going and ultimately wins for Warner Bros. Discovery, it may be the end of TNT in terms of sports, because I think that will be rolled into CBS Sports and Paramount Plus. However, if Netflix gets Warner Brothers and Turner Classic Movies and HBO HBO Max, that would mean the TNT, TBS, and all their networks that carry sports would then be rolled into Discovery Global, which is expected now to roll out from under Warner Bros. Discovery this summer, and that means that they probably might do a mega content service to help boost their sports bottom line. So the next move is up to Paramount. Right now, it looks like Netflix may finally get this deal. Now they have to worry about trying to get it to the regulatory authorities, both here in the United States and in Europe, to make it happen.
You also are going to be headed out to a very big event, Simon. We've got CES 2026 about to start here. Samsung, LG, Smart TV involved, and naturally we've gone above the term Smart TV because of AI being so heavily involved in everything that we're doing. What do you expect coming up here?
Well, as a matter of fact, Craig, it is underway right now. They're in day number 2. Samsung and LG had press events this past Sunday and Monday, respectively. And I have to tell you, the big story at CES, I've been watching it virtually, is artificial intelligence everywhere. And in the case of smart TV sets, it looks like, we talked about this last week, the rollout of these agents or features like Alexa Plus and Google Gemini and Perplexity AI and Microsoft's Copilot, it's happening, and it's happening big. And what they're now showing is a couple of things that have some very interesting impacts on sports and sports television. One of the things that both Samsung and LG showcased at their respective press events was the idea of, you're watching a sports event, and let's say you want to say through, let's say, your assistant, whether it is, again, Alexa Plus or whatever, show me the odds of my favorite team winning this game, given their track record and what's going on currently in the field. And within seconds, they will show you a graphic showing you what the odds are in terms of your favorite team winning that particular baseball game or soccer game or basketball game or football game. In addition, you're also going to be able to dictate the sound quality. Let's say you want to hear more of the crowd noise, the natural sound, and less of the play-by-play or the color commentary. You'll be able to do that through your voice and through a voice remote. And something else that also caught my eye with all of these demos and things that the smart TV set makes are doing, the idea of personalized video hubs or video screens, where let's say you'll be able to get the content and the services you want, or let's say your wife, your daughter, your son will get the personalized situation that they want, whether it's sports or the things. And the security is such that you will be able to not have your information seep over into what your family members are doing. And that's very important, because if we think that sports betting is finally going to make a move on the television set, security is very, very important. So this idea of personalized hub screens, I think, is going to be very critical in terms of the ability for sports betting to happen on the TV set. Maybe as early, maybe this year for finally.
And later today, you'll find out more about NBC Universal and their coverage of the Olympics. And of course, NBC taking a very big footprint into the National Basketball Association, Major League Baseball coming their way as well. I'm guessing, Simon, that'll be a hot topic today.
It will be. At 30 Rock in about an hour, NBC Universal is going to showcase the Winter Olympics, the Super Bowl, as well as the NBA All-Star Game, and maybe Sunday Night Basketball, which will be carried both on NBC and Peacock. Some of the things I'll be looking for is how much of a role Peacock is going to have. We also now know that USA Network and CNBC, which have now been spun off from NBC Universal into their own service, Versant, their own management company, they are going to carry Olympic coverage this year. Peacock, by the way, some of their coverage will be on NBC Sports Network, which will be carried on on cable and satellite. As being arranged to see, by the way, in terms of Sunday Night Basketball and the NBA All-Star Game, I think is going to be whether or not they're going to follow the Prime Video lead of doing bet tracking. So you'll be able to track your favorite team, not only in the NBA All-Star Game, but maybe in some of our weekend things like the Slam Dunk Contest to see who your favorite player is and how they're doing. And if you're a FanDuel or DraftKings person, to follow that bet tracking along. Again, another step forward toward maybe ultimate sports betting on the TV set.
USA Network taking the plunge into women's volleyball, called the One Volleyball League. Simon, get us familiar with this before it debuted.
It's League One Volleyball, 6 teams involved. It started actually 2 years ago. Now it is going to be on USA Network. In fact, the first game is tonight. Courtney Thompson and Shelby Coppage are going to be the commentator and play-by-play perspective. They both have, by the way, experience in both college and pro volleyball. And given the fact that college volleyball this past month did so well, the NCAA tournament on ABC and ESPN, in some cases nearly 1 million people saw the games. It's going to be very interesting to see how women's pro volleyball takes off as a sport. And they're not the only ones USA is doing this. By the way, first game again is tonight with the defending champion Austin up against Nebraska. You have Pro Volleyball Federation. Their games are already running on CBS Sports Network. They're running on FS1 and 2. They're running on the Roku channel. So we're going to have a very interesting thing to see whether or not volleyball may be the next major women's pro sport on television.
Simon, as always, thanks for checking in. Enjoy the conference today, and we'll find out more about what happened next week here on NewsWire. Thanks again for coming on.
You got it, Craig. Take care.
You got it. Several reports, including me, stating that the Marlins and Cubs could be closing in on a potential trade that would send Edward Cabrera, the Marlins pitcher, to the Chicago Cubs. The deal is not done yet. We'll see if it does get finalized, and if it does while we're on the air, I'll give it to you. Otherwise, I'll tell you on social media later today. We'll check in with Brady Cannon from the conference back in October right after this. Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
They have one more win than Chicago, and they literally beat Chicago in Week 17, and yet the Niners are on the road and the Bears are at home. Why? Because of an outdated rule that says, well, winning your division is the holy grail. Rewarding an 8-win division winner with a home playoff game is like giving the corner office to the guy who won the office fantasy pool instead of the guy who actually closed the accounts all year.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
It's going to open up Pandora's box. But I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Back in October, SportsGrid had a lot of fun featuring different interviews at the G2E Tech Conference, a lot surrounding the world of sports betting. So each and every day, we try to give you a little piece of what happened back in the fall In this case, it's Brady Cannon sitting down with the co-founder of Third Planet Media, Aaron Small, surrounding the future of sports betting and tech as it stands in the future. So here is Brady sitting down with Aaron Small exclusively here on NewsWire.
Welcome back, everybody. It is the ongoing coverage here on SportsGrid of G2E, the annual Global Gaming Expo here in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm Brady Cannon, and now joined by Adam Small. He is the founder of Third Planet Media. And Adam, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the program. Welcome to SportsGrid. But you got to tell me, I'm as uneducated as our audience. Third Planet Media, what is it? Talk to me.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. First of all, Brady, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Third Planet Media is my third entrepreneurial venture in this industry.
Great name. I love it.
Thank you. So, yeah, Third Planet, third company.
Yeah.
Actually, big Modest Mouse fan. So the name came from the name of my favorite song, Third Planet, that they did.
Okay.
We launched, my partner Cal Spears and I launched this company in late 2023. We wanted to run a reputable and independent news source for people who are looking to learn more and understand more about the industry.
About gaming.
About gaming, yeah.
Okay.
So we started a lottery site actually first to talk about the lottery business and cover, just the ins and outs of the industry, the deal making, the government interactions with the businesses involved, and so on. And then later on, we launched CasinoReports.com, which covers the casino space and online casinos, legislative, regulatory, media, business dealings. It's very much business news. And our latest venture is InGame.com, and
cool.
That covers prediction markets and sports, and that's
news about that type of stuff.
News, like business news that if you were a reporter at the New York Times or if you were, at Bloomberg and you didn't understand sports betting, we want to be the people you come to learn
You
more.
probably have just a few candidates you could interview here at G2E, right?
Just a few,
Just
yeah.
a couple?
We actually, we just took over the Business of Betting podcast as well, and yeah, we're out here recording shows, so just a lot of media basically covering the kind of people that hang out at a place like this.
That's great. I'm always so intrigued doing this. This is my third G2E doing this for SportsGrid, and you come across so many different facets of this industry. There's the guy who builds the slot machine. There's the guy who does a show about playing the slot machine. There's a guy who reports on all the news about everything that's going on, like Adam Small, and then now has a specifically focused news-based product on in-game wagering. Am I on the right path there? That you guys are kind of a CNN of this stuff.
We're trying to be. We're trying to have, I would say, a better reputation than they do a lot of the time. We want to be the people that when you come to us that you're getting in-depth and correct analysis, like that we're doing our best to put together the story, from a neutral perspective and understand as many angles of it as we can. And so many people just don't know what's going on in this space, like would walk into this room and be lost. And
yeah,
we're trying to sort that out for people.
Very good, and helpful as well. Now, you have a long time background in poker.
Yeah, initially, that's where I got into the business.
And so how did that translate into this, what you're doing, Third Planet Media?
So I like a lot of people my age, I graduated from college 2003. Chris Moneymaker won the World Series of Poker right when I graduated, and we were all obsessed. We all watched rounders about 1 million times
right.
and played home games for $5 and took trips down to Tunica, Mississippi and played a ton. And eventually I started a website with the same partner I work with now, Cal Spears, called Pocket Fives.
Yeah.
The idea was to take all the online poker that was going on and celebritize the players the way TV had done with the brick and mortar players. So
right.
Everyone knew who Phil Hellmuth and Phil Ivey were.
Right.
Nobody knew who Java Hound was, or whatever player.
Right. The moniker that they use. Yeah.
They didn't have real names. They didn't have pictures. No one knew where they lived. Like if they played in person, no one knew anything about them. So we'd find these guys or ladies occasionally, and we'd interview them. We'd get to know them. We would post profiles of them on our site. We posted rankings of the players, and And that was a total lightning in a bottle thing. We just got in at the exact right time, and it blew up.
Well, when we're done here with this little conversation, it sounds like you should be speaking with SportsGrid. We have a network here that broadcasts all over the world. You know, maybe you've got some content you can provide for us.
Anytime.
All right, very good, my friend. It is Adam Small. He is the founder of Third Planet Media. Thank you so much for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your week here in Las Vegas.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
They have one more win than Chicago, and they literally beat Chicago in Week 17, and yet the Niners are on the road and the Bears are at home. Why? Because of an outdated rule that says, well, winning your division is the holy grail. Rewarding an 8-win division winner with a home playoff game is like giving the corner office to the guy who won the office fantasy pool instead of the guy who actually closed the accounts all year.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
It's going to open up Pandora's box. But I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Let's check in with the latest in the NBA. Dexter Henry, kind enough to give us his time here on the show today as we break down everything that happened last night, and then we move toward tonight's games as well. Dexter, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate you giving us some time here to discuss what appears to be a really nice performance from chosen one, LeBron James. 60 points, 18 assists, 10 rebounds, 21 of 41. He and Luka Doncic went off in combination last night. Lakers win 111-103, and LeBron with a windmill dunk for the ages here too. Dare I say, dialing it back a little bit for LeBron James. Obviously not the best opponent here, but the Lakers will take any win they can on the schedule.
Yeah, look, and sometimes, Craig, you're going to see LeBron dial it back. Like you said, you're going to see things look like he did when he was younger. We have to remember his age. He is 41 years old, but it was a really deficiency is what you like from both him and Luka, but from him, 11 of 19 from the field. That's really impressive thing for me here. And the Lakers, look, they should beat a team like New Orleans. When they have their two stars rolling, they should be good. Now, can LeBron do this every other day in a playoff series? That is the really big question with them. And then the other big question is, can they defend on the perimeter? That's a thing for the Lakers. But look, you got to get wins where you can. The Lakers have had themselves a pretty nice season. They're trending pretty well here at the beginning of the year. But it really is going to come down to how good can they be defensively, and can LeBron James continue what he's doing when he gets to the postseason, when there will be no back-to-back, so that should be noted. But
Right.
Can he do that when it comes to playing every other day?
Yeah, and right now their odds are pretty static as to where they were at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Luka, by the way, plus 750 to win the MVP. And with Jokic kind of out of the mix at this point, his name very prominent, but naturally SGA is going to be the favorite until anybody says anything different. As long as Oklahoma City has the number one record in the NBA, hard to see him not winning, as you see the total 49.5 there. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Timberwolves take care of business against the Miami Heat. It was an easy win, 122-94. Minnesota certainly having the season that everybody expected. And on the flip side, Dexter, after that great start that the Heat had offensively, they struggled a lot. Felt like they were coming out of it a little bit, but here we are back down to under 100 points in a league where you have to score 100 to win these days in the NBA. So, tale of two stories here. Timberwolves looking fine. Heat involved in all kinds of trade conversations. We're hearing that they need to do something to get a little bit better. Tyler Hero's name has come up as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Tyler Hero there, Craig, and the Heat really haven't. They were struggling a little bit before he got back, but they really haven't looked right since he's got back into the lineup. I really wonder over the next couple of weeks. We're now under 29 days till the trade deadline. I really wonder how much more his name comes up in trade discussions. Does Miami try to move off of him because their read and react, no screen offense, which is working so well for them to start the season, hasn't really been doing that. On the flip side, the Timberwolves, look, Anthony Edwards, when he's been healthy, he's been absolutely fantastic for them. He was questionable for last night's game. He does play. He gives you 26 points. It feels like everybody knows their role. Julius Randle understands what he's doing. Rudy Gobert understands what he's doing. Dante DiVincenzo looks more comfortable in Minnesota in year two. So Timberwolves are taking care of business, and they're starting to move a little bit up the Western Conference standings, as I thought you could see. Now it's going to be an interesting time to see where they go and how is Denver able to stay afloat without Nikola Jokic. It's going to be a very interesting time, and it should be a time where Anthony Edwards looks to make his mark. He's creeping in on the fringe of MVP conversation as Minnesota tries to move up the standings.
Cleveland last night beat Indiana. The Pacers at least say they can cover the spread every once in a while, but that's about it. I can't believe this. They've lost 13 straight games. I mean, Dexter, this was one of the best teams in the NBA, and they're 6-31 now on the season. Worst record in the NBA, just simply chasing down the ping pong balls at this point. Darius Garland had 29 points, 6 assists, 2 rebounds. And Cleveland certainly has a shot to win the Eastern Conference. They're right there with a bunch of other teams. Knicks finally came back to earth a little bit with a few losses in a row. But on the flip side, my gosh, what a tough season it is for the Pacers.
Yeah, rough season for the Pacers, and Rick Carlisle could have got his thousandth win, in this one, and they blew a lead here, so that was also frustrating for them. Look, this is a Pacer team. We know no Tyrese Halliburton. They've been incredibly banged up, and right now it's just all about the future for them, and I expect them to be back contending in the Eastern Conference next season. But for the Cavaliers, who had a tough loss on Sunday to the Detroit Pistons at home, they had to get this one. Donovan Mitchell did not play in this one, and so this was one they still had to get. I think the encouraging thing, if you're a Cavaliers fan, was Darius Garland. He's been up and down all season. He had 14 of his 29 points in the fourth quarter. Looked pretty good there. I think a lot of it has just been him trying to feel healthy again, trying to get back into form. He looks like he's trending the right way. The Cavs have been a little bit better over the past couple of weeks or so, but they still haven't beat the teams ahead of them. They haven't been able to beat the Knicks. They haven't been able to beat the Pistons. So it's going to be interesting to see how they shake out in the second half of the season. They got some rough news about Max Strus, who has suffered a setback, who could be a huge piece for them come playoff time.
Usually this time of the season is trade rumor season. It does seem like there's a lot of smoke surrounding Trae Young, which going to be a tough one to swallow here. I mean, honestly, when you think of the Atlanta Hawks and the greatest players in the history of their franchise, Dominique Wilkins and Doc Rivers is there, many other great players in Atlanta. Trae Young, I mean, Dexter, right there at the top if they part ways with him. They certainly have not played well with him, scoring more points, but losing a lot of games. And there now are reports that they're at least open to potentially trading him. So this is going to hurt a little bit, but it may help the Hawks in the future. It just depends on what the return would be. And certainly there's no shortage of teams that would be interested in adding a guard like this for the second half.
Yeah, and I know Trae Young's is out right now with an injury, and I'm not trying to speculate anything, but you have to wonder how serious that injury is or how much that is involved with him sitting out to protect his trade value. But his previous time when he was out, the numbers were just so staggering in terms of how much better the Hawks looked without him on the court. Now, they were a little bit worse, and you mentioned about them scoring points, Craig. They were not as good offensively, but defensively, with all the length they have with Dyson Daniels, with Jalen Johnson, that with Emeka Okongwu. They've been so good defensively without him. And I think they really took a look at their team and said, you know what? I think with the way we're building this team, with the way we're trying to have length and youth, we're better without a small guard who is not a plus defender. And so I really do think Trae Young will be moved. I think it actually will be sooner rather than later. I have no information on that. But just when you look at how everything is going, you start reading the tea leaves, right? And his agent's starting to be in CAA, starting to be involved in terms of the decision-making and working with the front office. I think he gets moved. I think that Washington stuff is real. Washington has a couple expiring contracts in Chris Middleton and CJ McCollum that could work well for Atlanta. So it's going to be very interesting. But I think Trae Young will be moved. Now, it's disappointing, Craig, because you mentioned about him being one of the great players in Atlanta Hawks history. You are not wrong about that at all whatsoever. He is a two-time All-Star. This guy was just drafted recently. He was the face of the franchise. And so a little bit of a disappointing end, but it seems like it's time for both parties to move on.
Same could be said for the Golden State Warriors. Some very candid comments from Steve Kerr, who, of course, has won several championships as head coach and known as one of the best coaches in the NBA. But is this all coming to an end? Back on December 24th, Kerr said that the most important thing for me is for guys to recognize there's beauty in the struggle. We are a fading dynasty. And then a couple of days ago said, I just don't want to think that we're delusional in thinking we should be competing for titles right now with San Antonio and Oklahoma City. And honestly, it's nice for Steve Kerr to say these things. I'm sure he believes them, Dexter. But if you look when the season began from where they are now, their win total has cratered down to 46.5. This thing, they started off so hot, it was like in the 50s. Of course, they got Jimmy Butler last year. The feeling was good. Now Draymond Green is arguing with Steve Kerr. I mean, maybe this is the end, Dexter. Maybe this season is the final one with this group together. And then you just have to wonder if Steph Curry is along for the finish line here.
Hey, look, life can come at you fast. Father Time can come at you fast. And that's probably the situation here. I respect Steve Kerr's honesty and awareness in this. I think that is so important here, that he's honest and aware. Now, I do also think a little bit of this is him trying to motivate his team in any way that he can right now, because he has a lot of prideful players in Draymond Green particular, also Stephen Curry as well. So I think he's going to try to motivate his guys. But look, they've had a nice run, but I do think this is the end of the run basically for Stephen Curry and company.
We'll take a quick break. Dexter is going to stick around, preview the games tonight. So
Who are we looking at? We're looking at SGA because of his availability and consistency. It's Jaylen Brunson doing his usage and his leadership. It's Jaylen Brown for how they're playing. It's Cade Cunningham because Detroit's in the top of the East. The MVP talk is going to be wild, and it'll be interesting to watch. MVPs just don't dominate. They survive the season.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on Sports Grid. Dexter Henry is here with us from the New York Post covering the National Basketball Association, never afraid to give out a pick or two or some leans on some games. And so we have him here for the next 10 to 12 minutes or so to do just that. Some very big lines in the NBA, I may add, tonight. So we're going to go through this and then, of course, maybe see if the Clippers can keep their good fortune going. But first, let's discuss this one. The Detroit Pistons having a nice season, 10.5-point favorites against the Chicago Bulls. Total of 231.5. This is one of the bigger lines on the board tonight. Anytime I look at double digits, I wonder, is somebody missing on the other side, or is it just that Detroit is just that much better than Chicago, Dexter? Which is it tonight?
Oh, it is the latter. Absolutely here. Detroit is that much better than Chicago. And look, a lot of that is to do with the fact that they are the number 2 rated defense in the NBA right now. We just saw them crush the Knicks by 31 points on Monday night. And now 10.5 is the line here against the Chicago Bulls. And look, this is a Bulls team that looked like they had their identity early in the season, have gone away from that. They're also relatively young. I think the Pistons are on a mission. I think they're very focused on winning the East. I rarely would say, hey, take the over on a line this big. But this is one of these spots. I like this, and I just like the way the Pistons are playing, particularly defensively. I don't think they have a letdown here at home. I think they take care of business once again. And I think they cover this line here. I like the Pistons to cover the 10.5 at home.
Denver finding life without Nikola Jokic difficult, but not impossible. They've actually won some games without him, and the games have been pretty close. Is that going to be the scenario tonight in Boston, Dexter, where the Celtics are 9.5-point favorites, a high total here of 232.5? Certainly, we know right now Boston is in a better health shape than Denver, but the Nuggets are seemingly holding it together without Jokic, at least for the time being.
This line is one that gives me a little bit of a pause for cause, right? Because we just saw the other day, we saw the Nuggets basically punt a game against the Sixers. They basically rested, I don't remember how many players it was. It was a lot of players that they rested in that game, and they still were able to beat the Sixers, which was an impressive win because the Sixers have actually been playing decently lately. Now, on the other side, the Celtics, they've been really motivated. They're now up to second in the East. Jaylen Brown has been on a heater. He's been annoyed at the fact he didn't win Eastern Conference Player of the Month or Eastern Conference Player of the Week last week. So I like motivation a lot in this, and I think Boston has something to prove. Now, I also think that the Nuggets are a little bit rested. They also, are wanting to prove people that they can play well and hold it down without Nikola Jokic. So this 9.5, I feel a little bit differently. I'm not strong on it the way I feel about Detroit, because I can see the Nuggets keeping this pretty close. If you feel really good about the way the Celtics are playing right now, I'd maybe sprinkle down a few on that with the Celtics. This would be a stay away for me in terms of the line, because I could just see it being close. I think Denver's well coached. I think they're scrappy. I think they hear the noise about them playing without Nikola, and they want to prove something. Sure. So I could see this. Could I see the Celtics winning by 8? Sure. Could I see them exactly winning by 9? Sure. Could see that as well, too. But I'd stay away from this line.
A couple of weeks ago, if I told you Clippers at Knicks, give me point spread, you'd say Knicks by 12. Yep. Clippers are playing better basketball, and the Knicks are not. And so the odds makers have to adjust this thing for Kawhi Leonard and company. He's playing MVP basketball. The Knicks have struggled, at least recently. But every team goes through a 3-4 game losing streak. That's true. It's at the Garden tonight. 221.5 is the total. Do the Knicks finally break this and get off to a good start tonight? Because it seems like they've been down in these games pretty quick.
Yeah, the last game, the only lead they had was 1-0 against the Pistons on an OG Anunoby free throw, and then it was all downhill from there. So, look, I think the Knicks have to. I think this is a huge spot for the Knicks. I think this game means more for the Knicks than it necessarily does the Clippers tonight, but I also felt that way on Monday night, so I could be wrong. But I think the Knicks have heard the noise. The fan base is angry. They're very concerned around this 4-game losing streak for the Knicks, and the Knicks know they need to get right, because after this game, they go on the West Coast road trip for 4 games here. So 4.5, you're right, Craig. A line I would not have called just even 2.5 weeks ago. I would not have said, I would have said the line would have been much higher, probably around between, you said 10 to 12 for sure. But Clippers are playing good basketball. I expect this to be more competitive. I think the Knicks' advantage is they have a little bit more youth in their depth. I think the Knicks are going to play well tonight. I think they'll be very, very encouraged to get off to a good start at the Garden. So I like the Knicks to cover here. This is actually a bet I really like tonight. I like the Knicks to cover here, and I would pick the Knicks here, and I think there's some really good prop opportunities for the Knicks in this one. Particularly, I'd look at Mitchell Robinson's over on rebounds. That's one I would target if I was somebody out there looking at this game, because I just think this is a good rebounding spot for him against the Clippers, an older team, and I think he will be fine in this matchup in terms of grabbing a bunch of offensive rebounds.
Thunder proving to be mortals. Chasing 70 wins isn't as easy as it looks. They've dropped a couple of games, but they're still huge favorites tonight against the Utah Jazz. And I know the Jazz, Dexter, just lost big to Portland Trailblazers, but if you look over the last few weeks, I mean, Utah does seem to pick up some wins as huge underdogs. I don't know if that's going to happen again tonight, but there's certainly a lot of points, total of 242.5. I heard last game that OKC was really mad about losing 2 games ago, and that didn't work out. What happens tonight?
Yeah, this is one where, this should be a blowout. But you make a great point that Utah has been competitive. They have some good wins recently, including one against Detroit. I think that was over about 8-9 days ago. They had one against Detroit before the new year. So they've played really well. The spread in this is really, really high. I generally do not like spreads this high. Should they blow them out? Yes. But hey, just the last game. I expect a bit of an angry Thunder team. They played terribly in their last game. They lost to the Charlotte Hornets, one of the worst teams in the league. And they didn't just lose. They got spanked in that one. So if you really feel like this is a blowout, then sure, you can take the -19 here and say they're going to, get some payback here in terms of giving another team a blowout. But 19 is just a really, really big number in the NBA. And we've seen runs, and we see how runs can happen late. So it's a stay away from me. I would probably target maybe some other stuff like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, maybe to score 30-plus points. He'll probably do it in 3 quarters. That can happen. Look at something like that in this game. I'd stay away from the line.
Finally, Spurs play tonight. Lakers coming off that win. But again, is this a game where LeBron James sits on a back-to-back? That's what the line says. Their 8-point favorites are San Antonio, total 235.5, Dexter. So is it the one-man show? Well, not one-man show, but is Luka's show tonight?
Yeah, probably on that. I'd love a lot of Luka props in this one. I think LeBron sits back. The line sort of reflects that. I think it'd probably be a 5.5-point line if it was the case for the Spurs in that one. So I think LeBron sits in this one, but Spurs are just too deep, too young for the Lakers in this one. I'll go with the Spurs to cover.
Thanks, Dexter. Have a great week. Appreciate it.
Anytime, man.
Who are we looking at? We're looking at SGA because of its availability and consistency. It's Jaylen Brown to do his usage and his leadership. It's Jaylen Brown for how they're playing. It's Cade Cunningham because Detroit's in the top of the East. The MVP talk is going to be wild, and it'll be interesting to watch. MVPs just don't dominate. They survive the season.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Luke, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. You may want to check out tomorrow's show, by the way, for those of you who may be leaving us now, because we got a great program for you tomorrow. In fact, Manny Navarro from The Athletic, who is in Arizona getting ready to cover Miami and Mississippi on Thursday night, he's going to be on the show. And also, what's up next for the Cleveland Browns? ESPN Cleveland's Gerard Cherry, former Super Bowl champion, is going to join us on the show tomorrow as well. But before we wrap up this edition of the show, an absolute blowout in the NHL last night, something we don't see very often. How about Matt Campbell going to Penn State and taking all of the luggage with him? And is it possible that you could actually watch a sports broadcast and listen only to the fans in the stands, muting the announcers? Why would you want to do that? We'll get to that and a whole lot more. Time now for this edition of Last Licks. All right, so you don't see this happen very often in the National Hockey League. You see 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, 6-0. Occasionally, you see those kind of scores. But you don't often see a team beat another team by a final of 9-0. That was the scenario last night as the New York Islanders ended up defeating the New Jersey Devils by that score, 9-0. So what does it mean? Well, in the grand scheme of things, it's one game. Probably nobody ever remembers it. But a very funny social media post coming from the New Jersey Devils, who posted just the score yesterday, 9-0. I mean, that is a crazy final to see in the National Hockey League. And by the way, this thing didn't really get out of hand until the end. So it's going to happen. People will forget, but at least social media account can have some fun with that. 9-0 final. Islanders win last night. Okay, now let's get to some college football. Matt Campbell is the new head coach at Penn State University, did a great job at Iowa State University. In fact, did such a good job that the players obviously like him. For those of you following along on social media, Campbell is not just going to be taking a couple of players along from Iowa State to Penn State. He's taking the entire team. Yes, that's right. Approximately, at least, by the way, still early, 20 different players from Iowa State going to be going to Penn State. That's like an entire team. 20 different guys. You see this all the time in college football, by the way, and I'm sure Lane Kiffin will end up with 5 or 6 or 7 or 10. But man, you don't see an entire roster. But in this day and age of the NIL, and I guess the kids really liked the way that Campbell coached, he leaves the Cyclones, goes to Happy Valley, and taking at least 20 players along with him for the ride. Finally, for those of you getting ready to watch your college football playoffs and NFL playoff games, imagine a world where you're watching a game, and particularly if it's on Peacock, which of course is otherwise known as NBC, and if you don't like the announcers, which, by the way, they do a really good job, Mike Tirico, if I'm not mistaken, is NBC is one of the very best in the business, but they're going to give you the option in the future, at least on the Peacock app, to mute the announcers. Now, I know a lot of you are watching out there going, oh, I've been wanting to do this with my local announcers for many, many years. As being somebody that does this for a living, why would you want to do that? But I guess if you do want to do it, here's the reality. This is the first app that's going to be able to make that possible. You can just listen to the crowd noise, watch the game, maybe do your own play-by-play announcing if that's something that you want to do. Could be coming to a app near you. Peacock app, by the way, otherwise known as NBC. All these apps are associated. It's hard to keep up, by the way, with all of the different apps and everything. I do have Peacock, by the way. This is one app that I do. All right, that will do it for our show today. Want to thank all of our great guests here on the program. They would include Michael DeCourcy from Sporting News, Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report, Simon Applebaum from the podcast Tomorrow Will Be Televised, and also Dexter Henry joined us here on the show talking some National Basketball Association. We are about 30 hours away from beginning arguably the best weekend of football that we're going to have maybe all year long in 2026, and it all starts tomorrow. So those of you who watch our programming because you're getting sports betting tips and you want to plug them into an app somewhere and keep track, here's what you do. Take out your iPhone or Android and you can scan this QR code. The SportsGrid app is available for both of them. And yes, there is a feature in there where you can simply put in your sports bets and track them throughout the experience. And you can also stream our shows live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, simply by, again, scanning that QR code. You may ask, is there a catch? Is there something to this? Am I going to have to pay for in-app purchases? The answer is no. It is free, the SportsGrid app, for all of you watching here on NewsWire. That will do it for our show again today. Thanks to our director, Luke. For my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Can't wait to see you guys back again tomorrow, noon Eastern, for our next edition of NewsWire. I'll see you then.